with the announcement in Popular Mechanics, and it was the other major publication, Popular Engineering or something like that, that ran the other article. That basically gave an alarm to the powers that be, primarily DuPont Company, Andrew Mellon, Randolph Hearst, who was a part of the Narcotics Bureau. He's the head of the Narcotics Bureau. And with alcohol prohibition ending, Anslinger was looking for a new place to save his task force, and so they targeted the outline of marijuana to promote the chemical productions from the DuPont Company. And William Randolph Hearst's uncle was Andrew Mellon, who was on the board of trustees at DuPont and was also a famous international and very corrupt banker. And so they conspired to outlaw hemp and pass the Marijuana Tax Act in 1937. And what they did was they literally created the name marijuana. It was a colloquial name for a slang term for, most scholars believe it was hemp, but it could have even been another plant. And really just blindsided the farmers with this law. They basically snuck it through and didn't tell anybody that hemp and cannabis or marijuana were the same thing. Mm-hmm. And what Harry Anslinger did to pass the anti-quote-unquote marijuana laws was he would go around the country and into the courts and everything and present this book that he carried with him called the Gore Files. And basically what the Gore Files were sensationalized stories from the Hearst newspapers, going back to Hearst and the Decorticator, of the supposed negative effects of marijuana. And basically people would go around and murder and steal and rob and go completely bananas from smoking one puff of marijuana. And then what was interesting is by World War II, Henry Anslinger did a complete backflip and said that marijuana didn't cause violence, that it caused such pacifism that it had to be outlawed because the Russian and Chinese military would be able to overtake the U.S. if all of our people were pacifistic.
Hold that thought right there. We're talking with Jan Irvin of hempforfuel.com and gnosticmedia.com. We're in the middle of discussing industrial hemp, and it's about to get interesting with the onset of World War II. Marijuana's been banned. It's evil. It's bad. Can't have it around. Tide turns just a little bit. More on that coming up here in just a couple of minutes on Truth Net Radio and TNR Live. And our guest tonight is Jan Irvin. We're talking right now about industrial hemp. And it's a crop that's been around since time immemorial. Man has used it in a number of ways, and we brought it kind of up to World War II. It was, demonized, and we had to get totally rid of it. But Jan, World War II kind of changed the status of hemp somewhat, did it not?
Yes, it did. Well, in World War II, the Japanese had cut off our Manila hemp supplies, and so the United States was desperately seeking a way to fill the demand for fiber in this country, and not being able to import it, the United States government asked the farmers through the 4-H clubs to began growing industrial hemp. So from, I believe, 1942 to 1946, I think 40 or 50,000 acres of hemp were planted a year to help the war efforts, because, like I said earlier, with the old ships, the sails were made from that, but even with the modern warships, the anchor lines were still made from cannabis. And what a lot of people don't know is that things like parachutes and uniforms and things like that were often still made from hemp. And in fact, it's very well documented that during World War II, when George Bush Sr. was shot down in his plane on the Pacific Theater, his parachute, the webbing, and everything was actually made from hemp. So it's kind of ironic that one of the leaders in eradicating this most useful plant literally had his life saved by the very plant he's trying to eradicate.
Isn't that irony? And but another irony is the fact here it is, it's a banned substance in the United States, and we're buying it from overseas until it's cut off. I mean, that's ironic in itself.
Well, you know, in Canada, in the late 90s, began producing hemp again. In the last 10 years, or 15 years, really, since Jack Harry's book really began gaining some steam, the use of industrial hemp has been brought back to about 50 different countries. And, you know, I used to live in Yugoslavia, and they still had a flourishing, and I wouldn't say flourishing, it was probably running at 5 to 10% of what it used to before the sanctions, but still had a hemp industry there. And I was in Hungary, and they still had a hemp industry making very fine linens. In fact, I was in downtown Budapest one day, and I look in a store, and they had a 100% hemp wedding gown advertised in one of the bridal stores there. It's still produced in China. In fact, in the late 90s, the United States, down in Brawley, California, actually allowed a test crop, and then a week or 2 weeks before the crop was to be harvested, the DEA went in and cut the entire crop down. But, you know, France still grows a lot of hemp. Italy does. You know, France grows industrial hemp for making paper. In fact, most cigarette paper, most people don't know, is actually hemp. Italy has a record of making some of the finest writing paper and linens and things like that, fine lace and things from hemp. And, you know, so its use in various parts of the world is still very widespread. And in fact, I think in 1546, the Spanish king ordered that all of the new colonies in South America were required to grow hemp, and that stood until the U.S. government went in and began forcing the various countries around the world to outlaw hemp.
So why is the demonization of this plant been allowed to continue for so long? I mean, we're 60 years removed from its initial ban by the federal government.
70 years.
70 years, and so there are so many uses for this product that we could virtually cut our dependence on oil overnight. You know, it's an easily renewable resource. I mean, this ethanol thing is a load of malarkey. They ran it on us in the 70s. That ethanol was going to, you know, help cut our dependency on oil. It takes so much corn just to make a gallon of the stuff. It's not going to be cost effective.
Yeah, you know, and in fact, Cornell University did a study last summer stating that ethanol production for fuel supply was impossible. But what I found interesting about the Cornell study is they ignored another study that they did on hemp 10 or 15 years prior to that, stating how valuable industrial hemp was for a fuel source.
What about pollutants from burning hemp? Are they the same as with burning wood or with oil, or are they less?
Well, it's about the same as burning oil, but with burning hemp, we're not releasing sulfur into the air.
Right.
And let's see, carbon dioxide. One of the two, carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide, is absent in the burning of biomass fuels, as opposed to petroleum fossil fuels. And the main difference with the pollution with hemp and fossil fuels is that hemp requires most of the pollutants back as it grows. And not only that, if we began using hemp for paper, 1 acre of hemp produces as much paper as 4.1 acres of trees over the same amount of time. But if those trees were actually left standing and oxygenating the planet, obviously the trees would be eliminating a lot of that pollution along with the industrial hemp. And it's estimated that, while Cornell University and these other studies say that methanol and ethanol production could not be achieved with corn and things like that, what we do know, which Jack Hare and Len and Judy Osborne proved in the 90s, was that using 6% of arable land in the United States would supply enough hemp to satisfy 90% of our country's energy needs.